The prologue isn't just some boring intro, it's a story that pulls you right in. Jefferson Fisher, the author, takes us back to when he was just an 8-year-old kid in his Spider-Man underwear, curled up on the floor of an old ranch house. He was on his first ever hunting trip with all the men in his family, his great-grandfather who was a federal judge, his grandfather, his dad, cousins, all of them trial lawyers. He felt like he'd been called up to the big leagues. The magic happened after dinner. His grandfather, who had told a plain, matter-of-fact story earlier that day, stood up and told the same story again, but this time, it was a performance. He used his hands, his face, his voice went high on the exciting parts and low and slow on the intense parts. He completely captivated the room, and the story ended with a punchline that filled the house with laughter. Young Jefferson was just mesmerized, it was like watching a magic show. That night, he realized that while law was his family's profession, their true passion was communication and storytelling. He contrasts this with his other childhood inheritance, being the oldest of 4 siblings. This taught him the fundamentals of communication on a whole different level. He learned to patiently interpret for his younger brother who had a speech impediment, and he figured out that speaking slowly and softly could calm his emotionally intense youngest brother. He became the family mediator, teaching his siblings how to communicate their needs instead of just fighting. He makes it clear that law school doesn't teach you how to read people, only how to read the law. He had to learn the people part himself, through these real-life experiences. The prologue beautifully sets up his credibility, not just as a lawyer, but as someone who has lived and breathed communication his entire life, from family story nights to mediating fights over toys. It feels so authentic and personal, you're immediately convinced he knows what he's talking about. So after that amazing prologue, Fisher dives into the why of the book in the introduction, and it's super relatable. He talks about how, after his first social media videos went viral, he was flooded with thousands of messages. And people weren't asking for legal advice, they were asking for help with everyday communication struggles. Things like, what do I say to my boss who always puts my ideas down? Or how do I talk to my partner who always has to be right? And here's the key insight he shares, after talking to all these people, he realized their problem wasn't what to say, but how to say it. He says that whenever he asks people, well, what do you want them to know, they always have an immediate answer. They know exactly what they feel, I want them to know it hurts me, or I want them to know I need space. The feelings are there, but articulating them to another person feels impossible. If you've ever felt that, you'll be nodding along like crazy. This book, he promises, is the answer to that how. It's about learning to speak boldly and directly, but with empathy, so you can stand up for yourself without destroying your relationships. He's also really clear about what this book isn't. He says, I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. This isn't some academic textbook filled with studies on bees or whatever. What he's offering is down-to-earth, real-world advice from his life in the trenches of arguments and difficult conversations as a trial lawyer and a natural communicator. He breaks the book down into 2 parts. Part 1 is the essentials, which is all about getting your own mindset right before you even open your mouth. Part 2 is the application, where he gives you 3 simple rules for connection: say it with control, say it with confidence, and say it to connect. He promises to give you the actual words to use. He ends the intro with this really great piece of advice: don't try to apply everything at once. Just pick one thing that resonates, practice it until it's second nature, and then move on to the next one. It makes the whole process feel so much less overwhelming and totally achievable. Chapter 1, Never Win an Argument. Okay, so you've got to hear about the first chapter. It's called Never Win an Argument, and it completely reframes how you think about disagreements. Fisher kicks it off with this incredible story from his law practice. He's deposing this witness, a guy named Bobby LaPré, who is described as a half-human, half-giant, super intimidating. And right away, Bobby is hostile. No matter how polite Fisher is, the guy just gets more and more agitated. It all comes to a head when Bobby just explodes. He slams his hand on the table and says lawyers are the worst thing to happen to America, and that he doesn't trust Fisher as far as I can throw you. He even calls Fisher's questions stupid. You can just feel the tension. Fisher's first instinct, naturally, is to get defensive and hit back with some witty, cutting remark to win the exchange. But here's the game changer. Instead of fighting, he pauses. He realizes that when someone's reaction is so over the top, there's another conversation happening inside their head that you're not seeing. So, instead of arguing, he does something completely unexpected. He leans in and asks this giant, angry man, "What's been your biggest personal struggle this year?" And just like that, the whole thing shatters. This mountain of a man breaks down and starts crying. It turns out, he's been dealing with the immense stress of putting his mother in an assisted living facility and is being threatened by lawyers over her house. He felt helpless. Fisher's point is powerful. The person you see isn't the person you're actually talking to. Underneath the anger and defensiveness, there's almost always a hidden struggle. The core message of the chapter is right there in the title. Never win an argument. He argues that when you focus on winning, you almost always lose something far more valuable, like trust, respect, or the connection itself. The only thing you win is their contempt. The real goal should be to unravel the knot and find the struggle underneath. It's about seeing conflict not as a battle to be won, but as a window into someone else's world and an opportunity to connect. It's such a powerful mindset shift right from the get-go. Instead of gearing up for a fight, you get curious. It's not about being right, it's about connecting. Chapter 2, Your Next Conversation. So, after blowing our minds with the never win an argument idea, Chapter 2 gets super practical. It's called Your Next Conversation, and it's all about how the follow-up conversation is often more important than the first one. Fisher starts with a scenario we've all lived through. You have a big fight with a friend, things are said, and it ends badly. Weeks later, you finally agree to meet for lunch to patch things up. You've replayed the conversation in your head, and in your version, they apologize, and everything is fine. But in reality, you sit down, say you hurt me, and they immediately fire back with, "Well, I wouldn't have said it if you hadn't reacted that way." And boom, you're right back in the same argument, and the friendship is even more strained. It's painfully realistic. His point is that we mess up these next conversations because we go in with the wrong goals. Our goal is usually something unrealistic, like they must admit I was 100% right and they were 100% wrong. He says we're swinging for the fences when all we need is a base hit. The key, he argues, is to shift your mindset from having something to prove to having something to learn. This is such a simple but profound switch. Instead of a goal like get an immediate apology, you should have a realistic goal like gain a better understanding of where they're coming from or simply leave the conversation feeling heard, even if we don't agree. But a goal is just a destination, you also need a compass to get there. This is where he introduces the idea of conversational values. Before you talk, you need to decide who you want to be in that conversation. Your value could be honesty, kindness, or gratitude. So, if your goal is to feel heard and your value is honesty, you won't just say we're good at the end if you don't feel that way. You'll say, "I appreciate you sharing, but I still don't feel like I've been fully heard." Your values make the tough decisions for you. He then rewinds the friend lunch scenario. This time, the person goes in with a realistic goal, understand each other's perspective, and a guiding value, gratitude. Instead of accusing, they start with, "Help me better understand what you were trying to tell me. What did I miss?" And, of course, this approach leads to a real, healing conversation where both people feel heard. It's a brilliant, actionable framework. Set a realistic goal focused on learning, and let your personal values guide your behavior. Chapter 3, The Truth About Connection. Chapter 3 is where Fisher really digs into what connection actually means, and he starts with a hilarious and all too real text exchange with his mom. She asks him about the mileage on an old family car, and he repeatedly says he doesn't know. The conversation goes, "Do you know the miles?" "No, ma'am." "You don't have any idea?" "No, ma'am." Finally, she just texts, "That's fine, Jefferson. I just don't like your attitude." It's so funny because we've all been there. An email or text gets completely misinterpreted because all the emotional nuance is stripped away. This is his central point: we're living in a world of transmission, not connection. Texting, emailing, that's just sending data, like pixels on a screen. It's efficient, but it's cold and transactional. Real connection is about sharing information with depth, context, and emotion. He uses a great analogy, thinking that reading sheet music is the same as hearing a symphony perform it. The notes are the same, but the feeling is completely different. So what is connection? He breaks it down beautifully. He says it's not some vague, feel-good concept. At its core, connection requires two things: understanding and acknowledgement. You need both. If you understand someone but don't show it, acknowledgement, they won't feel connected. And if you acknowledge them, yep, but don't actually understand, there's no connection either. Importantly, he clarifies that connection doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person or that every conversation has to be happy. His dad used to tell him, "You don't have to like it. You just need to understand it." Connection is a conduit for both the happy and the sad, the easy and the difficult. He then outlines the 3 common ways we cut off this connection. First is a lack of awareness. We literally don't hear our own tone of voice the way others do. Second is a lack of understanding, where we insist on seeing the world only through our own lens and expect others to bend to our perspective. And third is a lack of self-assurance, which leads us to use passive, hesitant language that undermines our own message. This chapter really clarifies that connection is a skill built on a foundation of mutual understanding and acknowledgement, and it gives you a clear diagnosis of why our daily interactions so often fall flat. Chapter 4: Control Yourself. Alright, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Chapter 4, Control Yourself, is all about understanding what's happening inside your own body during a conflict, and it's fascinating. Fisher uses a story about a couple, John and Grace, arguing over their 3-year-old daughter Lily's bedtime. Grace believes in a strict 8 p.m. bedtime, while John is more flexible. This nightly disagreement has been simmering for weeks, and one night it just boils over. John lets Lily play a bit longer, and Grace confronts him. The conversation quickly escalates from parenting differences to personal attacks like, "It's not her fault that you have a control problem, and what do you want, for her to end up like your crazy mother?" It's a total mess. Fisher uses this to explain the 2 phases of every argument, the ignition phase and the cooling phase. Ignition is that moment when a productive conversation turns destructive. You feel threatened or defensive, and your brain gets flooded. He gives a detailed physiological breakdown of what happens to Grace in this moment. Her amygdala signals a threat, adrenaline, epinephrine, floods her system for fight or flight, her heart rate elevates, and most importantly, the rational part of her brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets suppressed. In this state, she's not thinking logically, she's just reacting to eliminate the threat. The cooling phase happens when the heat starts to die down. Maybe someone walks away, or you reach an impasse, or you finally achieve some understanding. Your body calms down, your rational brain comes back online, and you start thinking things like, "Why did I say that?" This is your rest and digest system taking over from the fight or flight system. The crucial takeaway is learning to recognize your triggers, the things that spark your ignition phase. He categorizes them into physical triggers, like someone getting in your personal space, and psychological triggers. The psychological ones are huge. Social evaluation, fear of judgment, personal identity threats, challenges to your competence, autonomy, or values, and loss triggers, fear of losing a relationship or status. The big idea is that what triggers you, teaches you. By understanding your own triggers and physical responses, you can start to recognize them in others. You stop hearing a raised voice as a personal attack and start seeing it as information, a sign that the other person feels threatened. This knowledge is the first step to gaining control, not over them, but over yourself. Chapter 5, Control the Moment. Chapter 5, Control the Moment, is where Fisher gives us the actual tools to manage that internal chaos we learned about in the last chapter. It's so practical. He says that right before an argument kicks off, there's this calm before the storm, a charged silence where you can feel the tension building. Most of us waste this crucial moment planning our opening attack. His advice is to use that moment not to prepare for them, but to prepare for you. This is where you can seize control before the storm even hits. He gives us 3 incredibly effective tools. The first is, your first word is your breath. This is brilliant. Before you say anything, you take an intentional, conversational breath. It's a specific technique. Breathe in through your nose for 2 seconds, take another quick sniff in, and then exhale slowly through your nose for 6 seconds, twice as long as the inhale. This is based on real science, combining nasal breathing to slow you down, and a physiological sigh to rapidly de-stress your body. The Navy SEALs even use a version of this called tactical breathing to stay calm in combat. It keeps your ignition phase from taking over. The second tool is, your first thought is a quick scan. Fisher tells a story about his first time doing a body scan in a yoga class and being shocked to discover all the tension he was holding in his jaw and shoulders without realizing it. He adapted this into a 2 to 4 second quick scan you can do anytime. You take that conversational breath, briefly close your eyes on the inhale, and as you exhale, you mentally scan your body for tension and release it. The final, crucial step is to internally label the emotion you're feeling in that moment: pressure, worried, impatient. He says when you claim it, you control it. The third tool is, your first conversation is a small talk. This isn't small talk with others, it's a small talk with yourself. It's a short, powerful phrase or mantra that recenters you and connects you to your goal. His were things like wait for the right pitch or let the facts tell the truth. These are concrete, action-oriented phrases, often starting with a verb, like find the struggle or stand firm. These 3 tools, the breath, the scan, and the small talk, are a powerful sequence you can use in just a few seconds to control the moment and keep your cool when things get heated. Chapter 6, Control the Pace. Chapter 6, Control the Pace, builds perfectly on the last chapter. It's all about mastering one of the most underrated but powerful tools in communication: silence. Fisher starts with another great lawyer story. His client, Chuck, is being deposed and keeps interrupting the opposing attorney, answering questions before she can even finish them. He's rushing, getting flustered, and losing control. Fisher calls for a break, takes Chuck into the hallway, and instead of grilling him, he just asks calmly, "So what are you going to do this weekend?" Chuck is confused, but as he pauses to think about his answer, his shoulders relax and his breathing slows down. The reset works. Fisher tells him, when you go back in there, take your moment. You control the pace. Not her. This is the core idea. When we're anxious or upset, we talk faster. Rushing signals that you're in your ignition phase and makes you more likely to say something you'll regret. The antidote is the well-timed pause. Fisher argues that silence isn't weakness or incompetence, it's wisdom in waiting. When you pause, you're not just controlling the pace, you're affirming your presence and showing you're guided by thoughtfulness, not impulse. He breaks down the power of a pause into 3 benefits. It gives you time to reflect, to choose your words and own them, time to reconsider, to read the room and observe the other person's reactions, and time to regulate, to act as a wet blanket on rising emotions for both you and them. Then he gives us a super practical guide on how and when to use pauses based on their length. Short pauses, 1 to 4 seconds, are like reading glasses. They add emphasis and focus. If you pause for a few seconds before answering a question like "How are you doing?" your "I'm good" sounds more deliberate and genuine than a quick, dismissive reply. This is the kind of pause you use to consider a question before you answer. Long pauses, 5 to 10 seconds, are like mirrors. These are your weapon against insults or rudeness. When someone says something hurtful, and you just respond with 5 to 10 seconds of silence, a few things happen. It forces their own words to echo back at them, making them reconsider what they just said. It prevents you from escalating the fight by having the last, most hurtful word. And it's especially powerful against people who are being dishonest. The silence makes them squirm and often unravel their own lies because they can't stand the void. It's such a simple, powerful technique for taking back control in a conversation just by mastering the silence. Chapter 7, Assertive Voice. This chapter is an absolute goldmine. It's called Assertive Voice, and Fisher tackles the question he gets most often: how do I feel confident? His answer is brilliant. He says that's the wrong question to ask because confidence is a feeling, and you can't just flip a switch and feel something on command. You can't just decide to feel happy or mad. Confidence, he explains, is an outcome. It's the result of doing something. The doing is assertiveness. Assertiveness is the action, while confidence is the feeling that follows. When you speak and act assertively, you start to feel confident. That newfound confidence then emboldens you to be even more assertive. It creates this amazing positive feedback loop. So, the real question isn't how do I feel confident, but what can I do to create experiences that build my confidence? The rest of the chapter is the answer: 10 direct, actionable lessons on how to practice assertiveness right now. He starts with the foundation. Every word matters. Simply cutting weak words like just or maybe from your sentences instantly makes you sound more direct. I just wanted to check in becomes I wanted to check in. It's a small change with a huge impact. Another huge one is to express your needs unapologetically by starting sentences with I need. This also means you have to stop over-apologizing for things that don't require an apology, like asking a question or being late. Instead of sorry I'm late, he suggests thank you for your patience. This shifts the dynamic from you being a burden to you being appreciative. He also points out that confident people have the urge to say nothing, while insecure people feel the need to comment on everything to prove their worth. Saying less makes your words more valuable. He tells you to cut filler words, like, you know, and replace them with silence, and to never undersell yourself with phrases like this is probably a dumb question, but. Finally, he talks about tone. An assertive voice is balanced. It says, I respect you, and I respect myself. It's steady, and you end your sentences with a downward inflection, not the upward, questioning tone of uptalk. This chapter gives you a literal vocabulary and tone of voice for confidence. It feels like you're getting a direct playbook for how to sound and, eventually, feel more self-assured. Chapter 8, Difficult People. Chapter 8, Difficult People, is for anyone who's ever felt like their kindness and patience are being taken advantage of. Fisher acknowledges that sometimes, being empathetic and finding common ground just doesn't work because the other person is committed to misunderstanding you. When that happens, you're tempted to either walk on eggshells or fight fire with fire. He says there's a third option: using your assertive voice to make it clear what is unacceptable to you, showing respect for yourself. He gives a fantastic insight into the psychology of insults. When someone belittles you or is rude, they're looking for a hit of dopamine, the feel-good hormone. Making you feel small makes them feel powerful, and your negative reaction is their reward. So, the worst thing you can do is give them the reaction they're craving. He then provides specific, brilliant scripts for dealing with different kinds of attacks. When they insult you, e.g., you're an idiot, the strategy is to first use a long pause to let their words hang in the air and take away their dopamine hit. Then, you slowly repeat what they said back to them. This forces them to confront their own words. When they belittle or patronize you, e.g., it's cute how you thought you did it right, the move is to make them say it again, I need you to repeat that. This throws the spotlight right back on them and makes them uncomfortable. Then, you follow up with a question of outcome, like, did you want that to embarrass me, or was that supposed to make me feel small? This exposes their intent without you getting defensive. He also gives you powerful comebacks for bad apologies. For the classic, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, your response is, don't apologize for my feelings, apologize for what you did. For I'm sorry. If I upset you, you say, I need you to change the if to that. These scripts are amazing because they are assertive and direct, shutting down manipulation without escalating the conflict. The chapter also covers how to stop interruptions. The first time, you let them interrupt to give them the high ground and let them get their impulsive thought out. Then you just go back to where you left off. If they do it again, you use their name to get their attention, Alex, and then state your need clearly. I will listen to you when I'm finished. It's a masterclass in standing your ground calmly and effectively. Chapter 9, Boundaries. Chapter 9, Boundaries, is one of the most empowering chapters in the book. Fisher starts by acknowledging how hard it is to say no as an adult. When we were kids, we said it all the time, but we learned that saying no comes with a cost, being left out, getting in trouble, or being disliked. So, we became people pleasers, prioritizing everyone else's peace over our own. This chapter is about reclaiming the freedom to say no. He has this great way of explaining what a boundary is. It's not just a line in the sand. He says a boundary is a perimeter, like a fence around your property. That fence tells the world what you value and what you are protecting: your health, your family, your mental well-being. Your actions, like saying no to a work event to be home for your kids' bedtime, are what build that fence and show others where your boundary sits. He offers a brilliant reframe for handling unwanted requests. Instead of giving a gratitude-first no, e.g., thanks for the invite, but I can't, which tempts you to add a weak excuse, you flip the script. The formula is: 1. Say no first. I can't. 2. Show gratitude. Thank you for inviting me. 3. Show kindness. Hope you have a wonderful time. This sequence is direct, respectful, and closes the door to follow-up questions like why not? And if they still push, your only reply is to repeat the turndown, I can't. He reminds us that no is a complete sentence. The most powerful concept is the idea of giving people an operator's manual, not a remote control to your emotions. Instead of reacting with "stop yelling at me," which shows they have the remote, you calmly state an instruction from your manual: I don't respond to that volume. This is you being in control. He encourages you to actually write down your manual, a list of your non-negotiables, like I will not allow others to decide how I feel, or I don't participate in gossip. Finally, he gives you the 3-step process for enforcing a boundary when someone crosses it. 1. State the boundary. I don't accept how you're treating me. 2. Add the consequence. If you continue to treat me this way, I'm going to end the conversation. 3. Follow through. You have to be prepared to actually walk away. He warns that some people won't like the new you with boundaries, but that's just a sign the boundary is working. It's a powerful guide to protecting your peace. Chapter 10, Frames. Chapter 10, Frames, is about bringing clarity and purpose to your conversations, especially the important ones. Fisher starts with a charming story about being a kid shopping for his first pair of Nikes. He was so overwhelmed by all the choices that he couldn't decide. Finally, his mom grabbed just 2 pairs and said, choose one. By limiting his options, she made the decision easier and more effective. He says conversations work the same way. When you have too many topics or no clear goal, the conversation wanders aimlessly and nothing gets resolved. A conversational frame is like a picture frame. It sets borders around the discussion, keeping the focus on the main subject and excluding irrelevant topics. It answers the questions: why are we talking? What are we talking about? And how is this supposed to end? Without a frame, you get those frustrating conversations where the other person says, so, what's your point? Or you end up talking about something completely different from where you started. This ambiguity triggers anxiety and defensiveness in the other person because they're wrestling with the fear of the unknown. Fisher provides a simple, 3-step process for setting a frame right at the start of a conversation. 1. Set a direction. State exactly what you want to talk about. I'd like to talk with you about your comments at yesterday's meeting. 2. Call your shot. Tell them how you want the conversation to end or how you want to feel afterward. This is your desired outcome. And I want to walk away with us having a stronger working relationship. 3. Get their commitment, secure their consent to have the conversation on these terms. That sound good to you? This structure is brilliant because it makes the other person feel safe. They know where the conversation is going and that there's a constructive purpose. He also introduces the one frame, one issue principle. Instead of having one meeting with 10 agenda items, you have focused discussions on single topics. This forces you to be concise and allows for a deeper, more productive dive into the subject at hand. Finally, he gives you scripts for when a conversation inevitably falls out of frame. If the other person deflects or brings up a past grievance, well, what about when you did the same thing 3 weeks ago? You don't dismiss them. You acknowledge their point first, then hold the frame. You say something like, "I hear your point. I need to finish the conversation we started. And if needed, I'm willing to come back and address that comment." This respects their concern while firmly steering the conversation back to its intended purpose. It's a powerful technique for keeping difficult talks on track. Chapter 11, Defensiveness. Chapter 11 is all about tackling what Fisher calls one of the most costly things in any conversation: defensiveness. He says it's the clearest sign that the ignition phase has begun, and when it shows up, all productive communication shuts down. He kicks off with a courtroom story where an opposing expert witness gets defensive on the stand. When Fisher asks a tough question that makes the expert's opinion seem contradictory, the expert gets condescending and says the answer requires a discussion of physics if you can grasp it. The jury immediately turns on him. The expert's defensiveness completely undermined his own credibility. This is the crux of the issue: defensiveness builds a wall. When that wall goes up, two things happen: you prevent others from understanding you, and you shut yourself off from understanding them. The problem is, we expect them to magically scale our wall while we refuse to even look over it. This is rooted in a deep human aversion to being wrong, which triggers all our psychological fears: humiliation, social evaluation, feeling defective, personal identity, and losing the relationship, loss. He explains this is caused by cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when new information clashes with our existing beliefs. When someone challenges a belief we hold, they're not just challenging us, they might be challenging our family, our friends, our identity. So, logic doesn't work. The more you push with facts, the deeper they dig in their heels. So, what's the cure? It starts with grace and giving people the benefit of the doubt. He urges us to assume positive intent until proven otherwise and to stop taking everything so personally. The key is to stop attending every argument you're invited to. Just because they throw a pitch doesn't mean you have to swing. He provides a 3-step process to stop yourself from getting defensive. 1. Catch yourself with a conversational breath/pause. 2. Let their words fall. Imagine their words falling to the ground before they reach you. You can choose whether or not to pick them up. 3. Get curious. Ask yourself, where is this coming from, instead of reacting. To prevent defensiveness in others, he offers 3 game-changing strategies. 1. Start your sentence with I, not you. I felt unappreciated is worlds better than you don't appreciate me. 2. Don't begin a question with why. Why didn't you take the trash out, is accusatory. When are you planning on taking out the trash, is collaborative. 3. Acknowledge first. Before making your point, validate theirs. Say, I agree this is worth discussing, or that's helpful to know, before you say but. This chapter is all about learning how to dismantle those walls, both yours and theirs, to create a path for connection. Chapter 12, Difficult Conversations. This final chapter feels like the culmination of everything we've learned. It's titled Difficult Conversations, and Fisher saves it for last because, as he says, these talks aren't easy. He makes the powerful point that the best time to remove the difficult from a difficult conversation is before it even starts. Your approach is everything. He says these conversations usually go wrong for 2 reasons: you don't know where you're going, or you don't know how to get there. This chapter provides the blueprint. First, you have to set aside real, undistracted time. You can't just spring a heavy conversation on someone when they're in the middle of something else. He tells a story about getting yelled out of a partner's office for doing just that. Forcing a conversation on your own schedule makes the other person feel pressured and defensive. Instead, you should ask for a specific window of time in the future, using phrases like, "Do you have the capacity to talk about this on Friday?" Or "Do you have the bandwidth to discuss this tonight after the kids are asleep?" This respects their time and, more importantly, their mental state. Second, when the conversation starts, drop the pleasantries. This is huge. When you have bad news to deliver, like firing someone, or a tough topic to broach, we're tempted to soften the blow with small talk like "How are you?" Fisher argues this is disingenuous and actually creates more anxiety because the other person can sense something is off. Clarity is kind. It's better to be direct from the outset with a statement like, "This is going to be hard to hear," or "I have something uncomfortable to share." This is honest and allows the other person to receive the news with dignity. Third, begin with your end. This means leading with your main takeaway or conclusion instead of burying it at the end of a long, rambling monologue. Don't make your listener search for the point, give it to them up front so they know exactly where the conversation is headed. Finally, he flips the script and talks about what to do when someone needs to have a difficult conversation with you. Your job is to be a safe space. When someone comes to you with something hard, your initial response determines if they'll ever trust you again. Instead of making it about yourself, "Something like that happened to me once," you should show gratitude, "Thank you for telling me," and ask one open-ended question to keep the spotlight on them. "How are you feeling about that?" He concludes with a powerful idea. The depth of your relationships is directly proportional to your tolerance for difficult conversations. It's a perfect ending that ties everything together, equipping you to handle the toughest talks with control, confidence, and a genuine aim to connect. Over the course of this book, you haven't just learned what to say. You've learned how to say it. You've learned different ways to see the communication happening around you. That means you're going to start hearing things differently than you did before. You're going to read others' texts and emails and notice the words, phrases, and fillers that clutter their message. You're going to be more intentional and clear-minded with your words. You'll also find yourself feeling a greater sense of calm and strength the next time an argument appears. That isn't by happenstance. You've set it there with method and practice, applying the lessons from these 12 chapters. By using a function that shows you how to say it with control, say it with confidence, and say it to connect, you now have a set of tools and strategies that can help you encounter any conflict. I'll end with how we began. Who do your words say you are? My prayer for you is that you let what you say and how you say it become your family's inheritance. A legacy of who you want to be and how you want to be remembered. A new life. A new you. Go make your next conversation the one that changes everything.